What is a sexually violent predator? The SVP-SDP laws require a finding that 1. The person was convicted of the offenses determined by the state to constitute a sexually violent crime. 2. The person suffers from a diagnosed mental disorder. And 3. As a result of that disorder, the person represents a risk to public safety if released to the community. If the individual is found by the clinical evaluator to meet the criteria, each state has a procedure for referring the case for civil commitment proceedings. These individuals are likely to be given DSM diagnoses of pedophilic disorder and/or sexual sadism disorder. While there are other disorders within the paraphilia classification, these two are the more violent disorders as compared to the others. Pedophilic consists of sexually arousing fantasies, sexual urges, or behaviors involving sexual activity with a prepubescent child or children. And sexual sadism includes intense sexually arousing fantasies, sexual urges, or behaviors involving real acts in which psychological or physical suffering, including humiliation of the victim, is sexually arousing to the person. New York State does not have specific sexually violent predator laws. However, we do have laws regarding sex offenders in general. Under the New York State Correction Law, Article 6C, we have the Sex Offender Registration Act, which was enacted in 1996 and last updated in 2019. And these are a few of the definitions found within that act. A sexual predator is a sex offender who has been convicted of a sexually violent offense defined in subdivision 3 of this section, and who suffers from a mental abnormality or personality disorder that makes him or her likely to engage in predatory sexually violent offenses. A sexually violent offender, on the other hand, is a sex offender who has been convicted of a sexually violent offense. And a sexually violent offense falls under many different categories. We go over to the New York State Penal Code, Chapter 40, Part 3, Title H, Article 130, to find what these offenses are. And an individual must be convicted of a sex offense if they are found to be guilty of rape in the first, second, or third degree, criminal sexual act in the first, second, or third degree, forcible touching, persistent sexual abuse in the first, second, or third degree, aggravated sexual abuse in the fourth, third, second, or first degree, course of sexual conduct against a child, female genital mutilation, facilitating a sex offense with a controlled substance, and or sexually motivated felony. So it encompasses a lot within that penal code. And going back to the Registration Act, there is a duty to register and to verify, and so a sex offender must register with the state at least 10 days prior to discharge from the correctional facility, hospital, or institution where he or she was placed. Results vary greatly depending on the type of sexual offense, as well as how soon after treatment or when during treatment a sex offender is released. One thing I have found across most of the research I read is that sex offenders have higher recidivism rates than other violent criminals. I do think there should be SVP laws, as this helps curb the amount of sexually violent predators there are in society. And these are extremely violent individuals who show significant risk to communities if released. Being that New York does not have specific SVP laws, essentially a sexually violent predator, somebody who is extremely sexually violent and is found to have a mental illness, according to the DSM, can essentially go free after 3 months after just being let out on probation. So we really don't have an all-encompassing law to say that these individuals should not be let out into society to unfortunately commit a crime again. And we do see that a lot of these individuals end up coming back into the system over and over and committing these violent acts over and over because there is no specific law ensuring that these individuals do not commit these acts again. It is difficult, though, to say whether one offender is likely to commit a sexually violent act more than once as compared to another sexually violent individual. Courts must base their decision on statistics and the background of the individual. However, that individual may never have committed an act prior, but would commit an act again. Maybe this was their first offense. How is the court to know that this will absolutely happen? There could be outliers, and there usually are. With this said, though, I do believe SVP laws are necessary and sexually violent predators should be committed to keep our communities safer.